Hey, good Thursday morning. Thanks for checking out your latest long-range forecast. Michael Clark here with BAMWX.com. We're going to continue to digest or kind of sift through and figure out what this forecast is looking like next week for the potential at some frost or some at least colder temperatures. We definitely know we're going to be dealing with a cold front of some sort. The question is going to be how far east and to what degree, to what intensity going forward. So in our 3 to 7 day impactful weather outlook, we have not yet officially included frost in it. We're going to give it another day and assess tomorrow. The frost could fall on the 8th, 9th, and 10th, or 9th, 10th, and 11th, pending, but we're not ready to throw it in there, so check back, and we'll continue to kind of discuss the risks here going forward, all right? So looking at rainfall just the last 3 days, you'll note that had some decent rain here across central Illinois. Talked to a couple of folks who got some very nice beneficial rain, over an inch in some spots. It was definitely needed. But rain is needed in many locations, and we're going to kind of talk about that going forward. This is a look at the rainfall forecast the next 7 days, and I think this illustrates things nicely. It's just using a blended model approach. You can see we are anticipating a cluster of thunderstorms. If you're in Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin areas, tune into your local video forecast because we are looking at the potential for a cluster of thunderstorms coming up here in the next couple of days. You can see expecting little to no rain here across the North Plains and no rainfall at all really the next 7 days across most of central Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. Some folks here really need the rain. Southeastern Ohio into the western side here, the Appalachians or the Mid-Atlantic, going to get some rain the next 7 days, but some folks here could really use it, all right? Going forward, we're looking here, this is just a look at the last, 30 days and what we've seen in terms of temperatures. You can see we've been mostly above average here across the northern section of the Corn Belt and mostly at or below normal here just to the south, just kind of a checkup on things. And then our precipitation since August 5th, again, note where the driest areas have been here across Nebraska when we're talking growing regions, southern Iowa. And that's where you're looking at about 10% of the normal rainfall that has occurred. Elsewhere, you're looking at about 25% of the normal rainfall the last 30 days. So certainly it's been wetter to the north and drier in the central part of the country. And guys, this is the pattern that we thought would have arrived back in July, and it didn't. It arrived in August instead. We had the general idea, we just couldn't nail down the timing, and we've had difficulties with timing this year with the erratic computer model data and the run-to-run just spread and differences in how these models are just performing so poorly. It's no excuse. It is what it is. It's just we're dealing with computer model data that is just not good. In truth be told, we literally are missing out on weather balloon data in the North Pacific. It's not being sent up anymore. It's affecting the North Pacific pattern immensely. The lack of commercial flights are affecting the computer model data immensely on a day-to-day basis. So it's frustrating. We're trying to depict the data that makes the most sense with the pattern at hand, but if the models even are failing at the pattern at hand, it's hard to select the right computer model. It's hard to select the right route or avenue to go. So it's frustrating, but we're doing the best that we can. Let's talk about this cold front next week. First and foremost, it's going to get really hot here in the central U.S. Friday, high temperatures in the mid-90s. Saturday, high temperatures you could be touching mid to upper 90s in western Iowa and triple digits in southern South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas areas, and probably again on Sunday as well. Very, very hot before the front passes on Sunday. And again, looking up over the top of the periphery of that ridge, that's where we're going to be worried about the potential here at some thunderstorm clustering going on. Exactly where, we're not entirely sure just yet. But again, keep abreast to those local video updates. Watch, if you are on the weather portal, watch your forecasts closely. Talk to us if you have questions. The front's going to come through, and temperatures are going to come crashing down. We're looking at upper to perhaps even lower 30s as early as Tuesday morning when we're looking here across the far northern plains. Okay, this is our upgrade GFS model. Then we get into Wednesday morning, and you can see here 30s being forecasted. This is not a minimum temperature plot because I don't actually have one for this data. You see it's GFS parallel. It's not, this is the upgraded version. So it's arguably frosty conditions Wednesday morning for the Dakotas, Minnesota, Nebraska, and far western Iowa. Then we get into Thursday morning, and we continue to see the same thing. I'm going to try and draw where you see the 30 degree or below 40 degree contour. And again, this is not a minimum temperature plot, so I anticipate that the model is trying to put mid-30s into the forecast here Thursday morning. All right, and then as we go forward into Friday, you can see it's still pretty chilly in the eastern Ohio Valley into Friday. Again, this is using that parallel GFS and just looking at things. That's what makes the most sense to me, as I talked about yesterday. The European has come in and gotten drastically cooler. Remember yesterday I said Wednesday morning it had Iowa in the 70s? Well, now it has it in the 40s. So it's a huge difference. It's bringing the front further east, but the European is still 10 degrees warmer than the GFS. It's not 30 degrees warmer, though. So that's a big difference. The Canadian model. I'm just showing you various different solutions. The Canadian model Wednesday morning suggests temperatures could be freezing. It's got a little bit of a cold bias, but it supports the GFS. It's got temperatures that could get into the low 30s Thursday morning for a big chunk of the ag belt. And again, it has a cooler bias. I don't think it can get this cold. My point is that we have data supporting it. That's the point here. All right, when we're looking at the ensemble probabilities forecast, all right, when you look here Wednesday morning, this is the probability for temperatures below 40. And then you look here Thursday morning, probabilities for temperatures below 40 on the ensemble. A good way to illustrate this is going to be looking at the trends of the modeling. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But here's a look at the latest EPO forecast. Okay, we're still seeing all models getting us 3 to perhaps 5 standard deviations below the normal. The European trended much stronger with the negative EPO overnight and got substantially colder. The GFS did the opposite, trended weaker, got warmer. So these models are continuously just throwing fits. They're throwing us curveballs, and we're trying to kind of dissect it all. But we know we're going to have a negative EPO. It's just a couple of days away. In fact, it's going to tank here by September 6th, which is in 3 days. We know that's going to happen. We know that since 1990, the strongest September negative EPOs look like this. Warmth in the south and west, warmth in the south and east and up the east coast, with the front coming into the heart of the ag belt in central U.S., perhaps down to Texas. That's what it looks like when this happens. Here's a look at the computer model data, okay? Previous runs across the top, latest runs across the bottom. I've got the European here. Let's just start. Let's start with the European real quick. Look how warm it was in the 5 to 10, 12 hours ago. Now look at the differences, same period from last night's run. So it got substantially colder further east, and that's a known bias in the ECMWF. It likes to hold these weird troughs or cutoff lows back to the west, and when we're dealing with the jet influence from this typhoon, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense it's going to do that. So the latest run made more sense. It brings the cold much further east than the previous run. The GFS, it's waffling back and forth. The last night's run at 8 p.m. was very cold in the central U.S., and then the 2 a.m. run came in still cold, just a little further west, and warmer in the east with that ridge. The European ensemble got drastically cooler. All right, here's the 5 to 10 from yesterday morning, and here's last night's. All right, notice the cool anomalies also got cooler across the central U.S. The GEFS parallel, or the upgraded GEFS ensemble, pretty much stayed the same, arguably got a little cooler in the central U.S. in the 5 to 10. So we're seeing the trends, and you see the way these models look. You see how we have the southwest warmth, southeast warmth. You see this general pattern. I want to draw this on every single of the latest frames. Then we have the cold coming down through the middle. That's exactly what our EPO analog looks like. So that's why, to me, this solution makes the most sense. It's not a slam dunk yet, but that's why I'm going with this idea. All right, so the week 1 and 2 temperature forecasts are not as cold as what they were yesterday, but they're still cold. Okay, data continues to be volatile, with trends over the last couple of runs, just big swings, big changes. We're still favoring that the cold air can influence the central U.S., and data has come together a little bit more with the idea in the 5 to 10, and again, a big change in the European and going colder here overnight. So we're going to see if that trend can continue today. But you can see as of right now, it's the polar opposite of 2019 for now. In the precipitation department, again, the next 7 days, I think there's a good shot at some locally heavy rain here. All right, that's going to come across Iowa, Wisconsin areas. The European ensemble seems to be handling that well. And then in week 2, something to watch is the increasing tropical potential. That's going to get into mid-September. The tropical activity is about to explode. There's basically a train, potentially, of hurricanes that could develop here in the Atlantic. That's going to get very busy as well. So I think it's going to stay drier to the west and wetter to the east. But I do want to, very quickly, I do just want to share that with you when looking at the cyclone potential here in the coming days. You know, when we're looking at the GEFS parallel version, you can see multiple areas of low pressure. Let's do the ensemble minimums here. But look at all this. Look at all these suggestions. Some coastal threats are certainly there, but we're really getting active here in the MDR, which is the main development region of the Pacific. Okay, or I'm sorry, of the Atlantic Ocean, not the Pacific Ocean, of the Atlantic. But you look here the next 16 days. There's the tropical cyclone tracks. There's plenty of them, and then I'll direct your attention to the European model. There's plenty of them here as well. No, obviously, direct threats to the U.S. yet, but it's too far, way too far out. Regardless, whenever we see the tropical pattern heating up, and we see that there's a big ridge establishing itself over the Atlantic, like the EPS ensemble is showing, all right, we get nervous, because what that can mean is that these tropical disturbances, they're not well modeled beyond 10 days regardless, but if they're developing in here, they're probably going to go around the base of the ridge. This ridge is going to actively steer them into the Gulf or up the East Coast. So we've got to continue to monitor that, as that pattern is going to get very active mid-month. That's all I have for this Thursday. Hope you all have a great day. We'll chat soon.